Every human heart longs for love. We all know this. We all know that the greatest fulfillment in this life is loving and in being loved. And of course it is so because God has made us this way. We gather today on this solemnity of the most holy body and blood of Christ, and we're called to reflect on this gift of the Holy Eucharist, where you and I are brought into the most intimate contact imaginable with the perfect love, who is God, expressed in the action of Christ on the altar of his cross 2,000 years ago, whose sacrifice is perpetually made present here and at every celebration of Mass. Listen again to the words of Jesus in our gospel today, words so well known to us from chapter 6 of John's gospel, known as the Bread of Life discourse. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. That whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in him. And I will raise him up on the last day. Here is the greatest and most wonderful promise given to us, that Jesus wants to unite himself to us, to be in us and with us, to share his love and his life with us. Here is the greatest experience of love that any of us can imagine and ever experience, since here, God, who is infinite and unchanging love, enters into our very being so that we might come to know that love. Our first reading from the book of Deuteronomy speaks of this dynamic and this engagement of God with his people, the infinite love God has for us, and then our response to it, sometimes filled with faith and fervor, sometimes marked by sin and infidelity. We know of the story of the chosen people, how they grumbled as Moses led them into the desert, how they would complain, wishing they would return to Egypt, where at least they had enough to eat. But in the address to the people that we hear from, Moses doesn't recount what they did or what they failed to do. Only what God did continuously for them as he guided them and fed them. And that's what occurs every time we come here to celebrate the Holy Eucharist. We come here at different times and in different stages of our life, sometimes in times of great faith and fidelity, other times maybe of great struggle. But God only comes here always to feed us, to fill us with his consolation and mercy and strength and peace. In our second reading, St. Paul writes that we participate in his body and blood. And that's expressed in all the trials and sufferings that we will have, but also in this most wonderful way as he pours out his mercy upon us, calling us to then readily and generously extend that same spirit of forgiveness to one another. The Catechism says it so simply, that whenever we think of the Eucharist, we should think of it in its fundamental reality as the sacrament of love. Again, this love that satisfies the longings of every human heart. And of course, then all of us should approach this sacrament with awe and reverence and solemnity, unlike anything else in our human experience. Because when we come here, God comes here to meet us and to embrace us. What happens here is indescribably remarkable. The priest utters the words, "This is my body, this is my blood." Those same words uttered by our Lord at that first Mass, at the Last Supper. And it effects an incomprehensible transformation as elements of bread and wine become the sacred body and blood, soul and divinity of our risen Lord, who comes to us now so that we might be united to him. Let's open ourselves to the majesty of this truth. Let it prompt in us a marvelous gratitude and awe. And then let us allow the power of this greatest gift imaginable to overwhelm us with that reality for which every human heart longs, that greatest reality of the infinite love of God.